All right, good morning. I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and it is that time of year again, folks. We are bringing back our very popular Christmas stocking kit. All right, so in this video, we'll talk about the kit itself. I made some alterations to this one. You'll hear very quickly what I'm talking about on that. But anyway, it'll involve a hair-on piece. It'll involve a tooled piece instead of what I've done here. I explained it all in the video. And then a piece of chap leather for the back of it. And yeah, it's a great little kit. It can be very quick and easy to put together. And they look absolutely amazing hanging in your home during the holidays. We've had these for several years now. We always bring them around during Christmas time. They've been super popular. And yeah, they're fun to make and they're an amazing gift. So stick with me. We'll build one of these up right quick. Here we go. Okay, so the kit is very, very, very simple, all right? In it is a hair-on boot, at least half of a boot. And then also, we just did some chap leather for the back of it because that way it doesn't have to be hair-on both sides. And yeah, and then also in the kit is a piece of veg tan. This is our Texas oak veg tan for so you can tool the top part of it, and then also another little piece of veg tan which will serve as the hanger to hang the stocking from once it's complete. Now, I am leaving for the Pendleton show in like less than 24 hours, so I don't have time, unfortunately, to tool and dye and antique and do all the things that I would love to do to make this just the coolest stocking I can make. So I cheated a little bit, and I feel like it's a good thing for the purpose of this video that I did this, because now it will also give you other ideas besides, you know, not everybody's a leather tooler, and I understand that. So I just took a rustic piece of brown leather, and then I just took our maker. This is actually my hat patch. It's one of my hat patches, and I sewed on it so that we could make our Maker's Leather Supply stocking. All right, and then the same thing, I made my little hanger out of the same leather. All right. Now I did roll the edges of this piece of leather and stitch them down just so it would have a prettier appearance to it. So if you're doing it that way, you may want to, you know, and not using the tooled piece, you may want to do it that way. So I cut it a little bit wider than the veg tan that came, so that I could roll those pieces over and still have a piece that's approximately the same width as it ended up a tiny bit more narrow, but not much. All right, and then the same on my little hanger, I rolled the edges of it over so that I could stitch them and make them pretty, because unfortunately with chrome tan type leathers, you just can't burnish them as well, and you can't make those edges as nice, okay? So, if you are able to, it can make a nicer stocking if you skive the back of the chap leather piece, okay? I did run mine through the skiver, to be completely honest with you, and it just, when you turn it right side out, it's a little bit easier to press those seams and everything and get everything laying correctly, all right? So yeah, but if you're not able to, this is a thin enough chap leather that it won't really cause you a problem. You know, to just stitch it like it is and then turn it right side out, and everything will be fine. You'll just have to work a little bit harder to press those seams and get them to sit out like they need to. All right. So I'm gonna take the camera, aim it down at the workbench here, and I'm gonna clip my my stocking together, my hair on and my chap leather, clip them together, and then I'm gonna sew those together right quick. Here we go. All right. So we're just sitting on the table here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these two pieces face to face to sew them together. All right, so first thing I need to do is clip them together so that they will hold while I sew, and one of them won't go askew of the other while I'm sewing, because sometimes if you're paying attention to where you're sewing right here, this end down here might be doing something different. So I'm just going to use some of my little binder clips that I use so much, and clip it together in a few spots so that I know it'll hold exactly where I want it to. Okay, and that skive I did around the edge is about a 1/2 inch wide skive. So again, if you've got the means to do it, then go for it. If you don't though, I'll repeat it again, don't worry about it. Like it is not a necessary thing to put this kit together to have skived those edges, all right? I get people all the time ask if you can skive hair on, and you can, especially if you're manually doing it with a knife and not a skiving machine. But skiving hair on with like an NP4 skiver or Fortuna brand skiver or something like that, it gets real hairy. But no, really, it can be very inconsistent. It takes a lot of finagling to get it to go through there smoothly and everything. So honestly, I do not ever try to skive hair on. It's just not worth the hassle. All right. So I've got this thing clipped together, and I'm going to run over to the sewing machine right quick, and I'm just going to start at one end, give me a couple of back stitches, and then sew down all the way around the perimeter of this thing, about 1/4 of an inch or so in from the edge. And that's all there is to that. I mean, it's that easy. If you don't have a sewing machine, it's also that easy to hand sew. You just stitch around the outside of the main body of the stocking. You don't want to stitch around the top here because, well, you need that open so that on Christmas morning you can have candy and lottery tickets or whatever your family puts in your stockings, or Santa, you know. Anyway, I'm gonna run over the sewing machine, stitch this together real quick, and then when I get back, we'll move on to the next part of assembly. This is a super easy project, and that's one of the things I love about it the most is, honestly, tooling the top part is what takes the most time. The rest of it's just an easy, quick assembly process. So here we go. All right, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Got that stitched all the way around the outside, around the outside, around the outside. And now I'm just gonna turn it right side out. Sometimes that's easier said than done. The biggest thing is, just like when we're making any bags or anything that are turned bags, you don't want to stress up here where your top stitches are. You don't want to like rip those or anything. So I usually will turn that down first, and then you should just be able to pull it like a sock. Slowly. There we go. Okay, and then we take our hand in there and just work all those seams out as nice and tight against the stitching as we can. Make sure it's got a good shape to it. Let me use my right hand here. Okay, and then with this being hair on, we may end up trimming, once I get it out, I'll know, but we may end up trimming a little bit of the hair in some areas so that maybe it doesn't look scraggly or scruffy or whatever around the edges. But again, once I've gotten it fully turned right side out, we'll be able to tell better on that. Okay. All right, so there he be. So it is a little bit scruffy around the bottom. That's a little bit longer hair down there, but honestly, I kind of like it. I feel like since it's white, it doesn't really like overpower the project or take away from the shape too much. So I'm gonna leave it. Okay. However, just along these very edges right here, I'm just gonna give it a very, very small trim just to help its profile there on the sides. Okay. I hate trimming hair on my workbench because then I feel like my bench has hair on it forever. I'll vacuum it later. Okay, so that was step one. Step two, we're going to, and I'll take the camera to the machine for all the rest of this stuff, but I find it easier if I go ahead and take my strap hanger piece and I put it, I don't want to put it right in the middle of the back because we've got a seam right there that's already going to be difficult to sew across. But if I just put it right behind that seam, all right, so right there, And what I'm going to do is I'll just put a couple of stitches in there to hold that in place. And that'll make life a little bit easier when I put the topper on it. It'll already be held in place and I won't have to be trying to hold it and the topper and the sock and, you know, all that stuff. But first, I am going to lace this topper up with just like a red ribbon, okay? This was designed to be almost like a boot shape, really. I mean, it's supposed to be a stocking, but I've always made them like a boot. So what I need to do is punch a few holes down the top of this so that I can lace it up like a shoe almost and tie a red ribbon on it. It really adds to it and makes it pretty. So I need to do that. So I'm going to grab my hole punch and a ruler and figure out my spacing for my holes, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have a 3/16 red ribbon that I got at like Walmart or somewhere. I don't know. I always keep stuff like this around just because you never know when you're going to be making a Christmas stocking, right? And I'm going to use a 3/16 hole punch. Okay, I just grabbed a random one. I didn't even look at the size of it when I grabbed it. Let me focus that camera a little bit better on the workspace. So again, a 3/16 inch hole punch, and again, I didn't look at the actual sizing of it when I grabbed it. It just kind of looked right. I wanted it to be smaller than the ribbon. I want the ribbon, when it comes through the hole, to, much like shoelaces, kind of expand and fill that whole area. Okay, now there's no set rule to the spacing on your holes that you're going to put on this, but I'm looking at, I think every 1/2 inch would be nice. Okay. So I'm going to set the first one about 1/4 inch in from the end, and I'll just use a scratch awl here to mark these holes first. And then I'm going to go about every 1/2 inch after that. There we go. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and punch those holes through one layer, and then I'll fold it over to mark the back layer and punch them again. And I said start at about 1/4 inch from the top. I'd start a 1/2 inch from the top because that's going to be sewn down to the stocking, so that might be a little bit more difficult to reach with your ribbon. There we go. And then I'm just going to do the same holes on the back side. Punching holes is one of those times that I sure would be handy if I had 3 hands. Wouldn't have to put the mallet down, set this punch up, pick the mallet back up, punch my hole. Oh well. It's how we were made, and it works out pretty well. Guess we can't complain. All right. So I'm not going to put that ribbon in there until after I've sewn it together and everything, but I'm ready for it, and that's what makes the difference. Okay, so again, I'm going to reposition the camera, and maybe I'll just bring my sewing machine over here, but I'm going to use a class 26. You can do this on a flatbed, but it's a lot easier on a cylinder arm, but I'm simply going to, once that back piece is already, that hanger is already on there, I'm simply going to wrap this around the top and sew them together, and yeah, we're already pretty much getting to be done with this project. Okay, so we'll be right back. We'll be at the sewing machine. All right, so I'm back over at my sewing machine. It's a class 26. I'm using 138 thread, about 7 stitches per inch or so. And again, I'm going to take my hanger piece and I want to put it just on the back side. Okay, so there's the side seam. I want it just past the side seam towards the back side. Now you can try to wrangle it and wrestle it and put it over that back seam there and have it perfectly in the middle. But especially if you weren't able to skive it, like that seam's gonna be a little bit bulky and it can make it very difficult to do that. So my suggestion would be to just put it just past that seam. And I'm just gonna put a couple of stitches into it to hold it into place so that it's in place while I stitch the next part together. Okay? Nothing to it. And I'll repeat it again. You can make every bit of this by hand sewing. It's nothing to it. I have a machine, so I'm going to use a machine, and I don't have a lot of time today, unfortunately, to hand stitch something like this. So here I am. Okay. There we go. It's not pretty, but it doesn't need to be because all of this will be covered up later anyway, for the most part. But now that'll be nice and held on there for the next part. Okay. So the next part is I'm going to take my top piece here. I'm going to fold it in half so that I can find the center of the back right there. And I'm going to put that right where that back seam is. Just like so. And then I'm just going to start clipping it together with this just sitting right on top of the top of the sock. Okay, and when it wraps around, it'll look like that in the front. It'll have a space basically where all those laces and everything will be. All right. So let me clip that together right quick. And I just want to butt the top seams up there, or the top of each of the pieces of leather, I guess I should say. Okay, I do the back, now I'm going to go around to the front. I always start in the middle on things like this, that way when I get to the other side, I'm not like, oh crap, I need to move it this way or that. Okay, so now we're starting to see what this is going to look like. All right, so once again, I'm just going to stitch this sucker together. Again, using a cylinder arm machine makes this easier because you can stick the sock over the cylinder arm. However, if you have a flatbed, you can finagle this to where it goes flat down to the flatbed. Not near as easy, but it can be done. Ask me how I know. Okay, so I'll start at one end, and I'm not going to stitch all the way to the end because, again, these little flaps need to turn that. There we go. These little flaps need to be able to get where I can lace them up. So I'm not going to stitch all the way to the very end, but I'm going to get pretty close. Maybe a ½ an inch away. Tell you what, we'll just start just past our holes. How's that? That'll be a nice measurement that everyone can agree with. Okay, and then as I stitch this sucker together, I've just got to make sure that the top of my topper and the top of my sock are both aligned, and get to stitching. A couple of back stitches to get us started. Now we'll work our way around. The other reason I kind of like this hanger on the back side is, in case your machine kind of gets hung up on it and creates some ugly stitches, well, now it's on the back side of your project, so who cares? All right, so I'm coming up to that area where that hanger is. So I may end up using my hand wheel and kind of finagling my presser foot to where it'll step up over it a little easier. There we go. And just kind of manually applying those stitches in that area. Then once I get past it, we'll be off and running again. Okay, just about to step off of that hanger piece. So here we go. And now I'm on the front of the sock where everything will be seen, so I've got to really be careful to make sure that my leather pieces are properly aligned and my stitch length stays straight and, you know, all those fun things. I really do wish that I had time to do my tooled piece on this. I've done a lot of these over the years, and I'll tool little Santa Clauses on them and initials and names and all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, it's a nice big area for tooling that you can do anything you want, really. All right, I've come to the end. I'm almost to those holes again, so now I'll do me a couple of back stitches. Alrighty, there we go. Clip this thing off, and we'll go back over to the workbench and put the ribbon on it and stand back and admire it for a minute. So here we go. Okay, so I've got it all stitched up. Looks pretty good. Pretty excited about it. Okay, so now I need to take me a piece of ribbon and thread it through those holes and lace it up. All right. Now I don't know how long of a ribbon it's going to take, so I'm going to cut a pretty dang long piece. And then I'm just going to cut the ends of it into a point, because once again, those holes that we're putting it through are smaller than the ribbon is, so that'll help. And then I'm just going to lace it up just like if it were a shoe. Nothing to it. All right, I am going to melt the ends of this ribbon though, because I can already tell it's going to fray terribly going through those holes. And then I can always recut those ends and make them nice and pretty after I'm done. All right. So I'm going to start the lacing process and everything. I'm probably going to speed the video up and I just won't talk. But we've all laced a shoe before, and I'm just going to do it the exact same way. If I find something different that I need to talk about or do, then I'll sure bring it up and bring it into the video. Okay? So here we go. Okay, so I got it all tied up, but I do need to just take and kind of adjust, you know, pull some of them a little tighter and leave some of them a little looser and stuff like that, just to make them nice and symmetrical and even. It can take a while to finagle all that, but I believe in you. You can do it. And you may want them looser, you may want them tighter. That's up to you. I also try to keep the twists out of them, which can be easier said than done sometimes. Here I've got my top two crossed. I try to always do the either left over right or right over left, but I try to be consistent every time. I'm a leather worker, not a ribbon worker. Very apparent right now. Okay. All right, I'm probably going to play with this some more to get it all, you know, as pretty as I like it. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and just tie me a little bow. Just like on my shoes. And there we go. All righty, give me just a second to adjust the camera and we'll talk about our project. All right, so here we are, guys. We made a Christmas stocking. No joke, minus tooling and dyeing and stuff like that. This can be made in a matter of minutes. It doesn't take long at all. I think it actually took me longer to put the ribbon in it than it did to sew the whole thing together. But anyway, there it is. That's the stocking kit project from Makers Leather Supply. Go ahead and get on the website and get one for yourself, or get 5 for the whole family, whatever. Until next time, I'm Aaron Heiser of Makers Leather Supply, and I hope you have a great day.